Exclusive to Bobby Friction and Nihal.
Yeah, I want to do my hair quickly as well. Because you've got to look good on radio, do you know what I mean?
Now. Overweight side of the show.
The only way, bruv. I've spent my career immersed in British Asian music, DJing, recording and mixing for the past 10 years. I've turned people onto the sounds of the British Asian urban nation all across the globe, and I love everything about British Asian culture. It's who I am. Yes, broadcasting from the heart of In New Music We Trust Towers. It's a solo Bobby Friction. I'm from a Sikh family, but you'll find many of the same customs, food, and especially mothers in Asian households, whatever their religion.
My mum's gonna hate this. She's a mum, isn't she? What? They filmed in a bathroom? We're going to do the bathroom in 3 years' time. You could have waited 3 years. You know what it's like.
I grew up thinking everything was white, black, or brown. Everything came back to race. Everything came back to being Asian. Nobody talked about religious differences. Some were Sikh, like me. Others Muslim or Hindu.
You're going to sing my 18th or 15th birthday then?
It just wasn't important. The racists saw us all as one brown mass of Pakis. And so we stood together to fight their prejudice. We identified ourselves as Asian brothers and sisters and decided it was our job, as the first generation born here, to make our mark on British culture. And that's what we did. We went into business, politics, the media, everywhere celebrating our shared British Asian identity. And as the new millennium dawned, we felt rather pleased with ourselves. Now I talk to young Asian brothers and sisters and they call themselves British Sikhs or British Muslims or British Hindus. I'm seeing a polarization on religious grounds. What happened to make young Asians want to distance themselves from each other when we were making such progress together? And what impact is this having on the quest for an inclusive Britain, where differences in race and religion don't matter? The kind of country I dreamed of when I was a kid. Why has this all changed? Was it 9/11? Was it the war in Iraq that did this? Was it that crux moment on the 7th of the 7th, 2005, when 4 British-born brothers, Englishmen, Brits, Yorkshiremen, blew themselves up and killed loads of people in London? What is it? Has my 90s Asian generation utopia been replaced with a more paranoid and polarized Generation 77? Like everyone, I was devastated when I heard about the London bombings. I watched as news outlets were flooded with stories of the atrocities on that day.
4 men, 3 from West Yorkshire, arrived here at King's Cross Station by train on the morning of Thursday, July the 7th. The police now believe all 4 men were probably suicide bombers.
Before long, the suicide bombers were traced to addresses in and around Leeds. So if anyone can tell me how the bombings have affected their sense of identity, it should be young people in Beeston. Why? Because 2 of the bombers lived here. They used to meet at the Hamara Community Centre and played football in the park. But finding people to talk to isn't going to be as easy as I thought. Beeston is in shutdown, still angry at the media attention post 7/7. Straight after the bombings, these 4 streets just down here were literally crawling with camera crews, journalists, undercover journalists, people offering young kids on the street, money. Can I take a picture of you in front of the Hamara Youth Centre? Can I take a picture of you in front of the mosque? Did you know the bombers? What did you get taught in the mosques? Are you a radical? Do you want to blow up Britain? Do you support the suicide bombers? Now, nearly a year after the bombings, they're still angry with the media. When I first approached them, that meant anger directed at me. Door slammed in my face, people just walking away the moment I said, I'm making a doc you. By the time I got to doc you, they'd just be walking away. There's no way I was going to think about turning the camera on. I felt intimidated. Their reactions really thrown me. I went there with a interesting Asian coloured chip on my shoulder, thought they would talk to me. Because I was going, brother, I'm just trying to find out. But the community is in complete shutdown. No one wanted to talk to me, and they were obviously very angry. I'm going back to London to do my weekly Radio 1 show. I can forget my frosty reception in Beeston, stop thinking about suicide bombers. For 2 hours, it's all about the music.
Bloody friction in the house!
Play that track, trust me. Over.
Except today, it's like the story I've been following is following me. I've been sent a track called Post 9/11 Blues by a young British Asian rapper MC Riz. He's also an actor known for his recent role in Channel 4's Road to Guantanamo. Only available on MySpace, this controversial underground track, dubbed by some a Muslim protest rap, has been downloaded literally thousands of times, but has never been played on radio. Until now. Open the ears, because this is Post 9/11 Blues.
Yeah, Chris, I'm on the beats, it's Riz. Big shout out to George and Osama. This is the Post 9/11 Blues.
Oh no, that big shout to George and Osama.
What can I do? I got the Post 9/11 Blues on the telly. Now it's the Post 9/11 news. War, Iraq, suicide bombs. Stop hogging the limelight and make some room for my songs. Anyway, it's all reruns. We need a two-war push. Go get Iran. I heard him talking about your mum. TV channel, watch some telly for kids. But what's this? Hi kids, welcome to Fun Fundamentalists. In the break, Nike's advertising bomb-proof kits. They're even showing Bin Laden's cave on cribs. Pick up a respectable magazine. Told me about the new Post 9/11 category. Israeli fighters and soldiers, Irish paramilitary.
Lyrically.
Dark humans are terrorists, a simple planet being. But not me, my friends go, Riz is still one of us. But if I haven't shaved, they won't sit with me on the bus. Everybody to the Post 9/11 charge. Look here, shake your heart while the bombs go blast. Shake your ear, head to ground, and you best salute the ground. Or the do you like the aliens to shoot your ass now?
Well, it's been played now on national radio, on Radio 1. Okay, let's have a look. On the message boards, we've got Ferret Fletch saying, good tune, very controversial, but it's so true. Then coming in via the text, one text says it's a disgrace. Sally from Lancaster says, whoa, amazing. Lee in Darlington says, that's despicable, man. Fiona in Peterborough says, this is genius. Now we have got loads more text coming in about the tune. You heard it. It was called Post 9/11 Blues by MC Riz MC. Yeah. We have never had as many texts about one track on the show before. And next day, I've become part of the controversy. Channel 4 News asked Riz and I to record a piece for that evening's broadcast.
Should Radio 1 be playing music that trivialises terror?
Radio 1 should just be playing good music that reflects the culture in Britain, music that pushes the genre that I DJ on Radio 1 forward. 9/11, 7/7, the so-called war on terror. These are the political issues that define our time, and you can't talk about any of them without bringing identity into it.
And I mean, I'll probably start by asking you whether you've done it as a Muslim or whether you've done it as an artist. I mean,
That's a funny question when you think about it. He's asking if Riz is speaking from a specifically Muslim perspective, but there's no mention of religion in Post 9/11 Blues. If it were my track, I don't suppose a reporter would ask if I'd done it as a Sikh or even as an Asian. But the word Muslim has become loaded with such significance these days.
Once they packaged it as a Muslim protest rap, the phone won't stop ringing, and it's just interview requests, and a production company asked me to author a, raw, cutting edge, edgy kind of expose Muslim kind of documentary, and I just think it's a shame in a way, because really it's stuff that everyone can relate to. It's a generational thing. It's not just affecting or to do with one aspect of society or one section of the community. It's not just about Muslims. Do you know what I mean? Does it make a difference that it's like a Muslim saying this? Does it make it more or less subversive or dangerous? I don't know.
thank you very much.
It was right after 9/11 that I started noticing a change in British Asian identity. But it's only since 7/7 that I've actually realised a major shift could be happening. I thought the best place to find out would be the community the bombers came from, but I've been shut out of Beeston. So to discover if 7/7 really has polarised young British Asians along religious lines, I'm heading to nearby Dewsbury, which was also linked to the news story.
Dewsbury on the outskirts of Leeds. 30-year-old Mohammed Sadiq Khan lived here. He's thought to be responsible for the Edgware Road bomb.
Also, the originally named fifth man, Harun Rashid Aswad, used to live here. Just south of Leeds, this less built-up area is very different from Beeston. The media didn't target the community here in the same way, and so I think I might have a better chance of getting people to speak.
It's still a blur. I mean, why would he go and do that, become a suicide bomber? He's just a normal, everyday person.
I met Wasim at a local snooker club, and he, along with many people in the area, had known Mohammed Khan.
He was married to a girl living next door to my cousin, so we knew him pretty well. We also went to school with him. It's quite shocking when we heard, what had happened, and basically who it had happened to was even more shocking, because you don't expect it to happen. Or you don't expect somebody to do something like that, somebody that you know.
Wasim was born and brought up here, and he's offered to take me on a drive around Dewsbury and Batley. Not in the Ferrari. That's his mate's motor.
Okay, this is where the tour begins. This is Bradford Road, Batley. It's an up-and-coming area, basically. It's booming in business at the moment. There's a lot of business development being done around here. A lot of apartments being built. The main population is Muslim around here. This is one of the first mosques.
Wasim says he's well known in the area, and he's sure someone will agree to talk to me if he asks them.
Have a chat with some people of the local community. I've got Channel 4 with me. They just want to talk to a few people.
This is perhaps not the best way to get people to go on camera, even though Wasim assures me he knows absolutely everyone.
Excuse me, hi, we're doing a documentary with Channel 4.
And if we drive around long enough, someone will say yes.
Are you sure? Okay, cheers.
At last, he's managed to persuade a couple of lads to talk.
It's affected a lot of people in different ways, but I think it's all media basically. Media is making it out to be something that it isn't. Our religion means peace, and it's a way of life from the moment you're born till the moment you die.
How does that affect you?
It affects me in the sense that if I try and get a job, and if they ask me what my religion is and I put Muslim next to it, they think twice about employing me because they're scared that I might blow them up. You know what I mean? Which is something I wouldn't do. I just want to earn a living, but I can't do it.
So if the religion promotes peace, why do people believe it's a threat?
They know that Islam is right and it's the world's fastest growing religion, and that's what they don't want, you know what I mean? They don't want our religion to be on top of them lot. It's all a conspiracy, I'm telling you.
A conspiracy? Well, the media is undoubtedly a very powerful opinion former. We get all our news filtered through TV and the press, but it doesn't change the fact that 4 young men from Yorkshire became suicide bombers. It seems pretty clear they believed they were doing it in the name of Islam. They must have got their ideas from somewhere. After 7/7, the finger was pointed firmly at mosques and Islamic schools called madrasas for fostering extremists.
So what really goes on in these places?
I myself am a product of one of these schools. So I went to one of these schools as a youngster. If you see me as a radicalist, or if you see me blowing myself up, you can forget about it. It's not happening. As far as radicalism goes, I think the media blows it out of proportion as to what people do in their privacy and what goes on in places like that. The teachings of Islam is what goes on, which is peace. That's what Islam teaches, which is what we believe in. It's more important than all the money you can make, more important than any car you can drive, more important than anything.
In fact, there never was any suggestion that local mosques or madrasas were implicated in the 7/7 plot. The idea really comes from the trouble surrounding the Finsbury Park Mosque in London, where it was reported 3 of the 4 bombers went to hear the Imam Abu Hamza speak. He taught openly that Muslims were obliged to kill unbelievers to defend Islam. Hamza is now serving a 7-year sentence for inciting murder and racial hatred, and the Muslim believers I've met are pleased to see the back of him. They don't recognise Islam in what he preaches at all.
When we think of the sheikhs, Omar Bakri and Abu Hamza, Muslims would never call them sheikhs. Sheikhs is a very respectful term, and it's a term that's given to people of great stature and great knowledge. But it was the media who purported them as sheikhs, and that is even more incredulous than displaying Muslims as something that they are far from. So you're suddenly giving these titles, like you understand what the titles mean, and you're giving these titles to these people who are certainly not acting as Muslims, not by a long chalk.
Wasim has brought me to a place known locally as the Islamic Snooker Club. It almost exclusively attracts young British Muslim men. True to his word, he's persuaded some of them to talk to me.
After 7/7, yeah, some people say they've questioned their identity. Have all those things that are going on in the world, have they affected your view of your identity?
It's like more or less affected us as a community, isn't it? It's like all the Pakistanis are being called terrorists.
How does that make you feel?
Make you feel like outcasts, really, innit? When really not, when you're born and bred here. You feel like one of them, really, innit? So, that's about it.
What about you, Steve?
As a Muslim, yeah, it has affected me. If I go out into a place where there's non-Muslims there, then I feel to myself like I'm going to be attacked. I work in a retail where I see loads of people. I see all sorts of people, and I have had funny looks from odd few people. They just think is a Muslim is cause trouble, and that's not me. I don't like causing trouble.
The attitude that those types of people have, where do you think they could have got it from?
Media, propaganda and all that. End of the day, the media is like the core of everything, isn't it? Like everyone watches TV, everyone listens to radio. So like, they get like fed, it's like basically getting hand-fed really, isn't it?
Just bringing it on us, isn't it? We're normal people.
These lads feel like they're being pushed out of mainstream life, made to feel different and dangerous because of what happened on 9/11 and then 7/7.
When I was the same age as them in 1991, me and my Asian friends would also criticise the media, but for very different reasons. We'd grown up seeing very few Asian characters on TV, and when we did, sometimes they were even played by white actors. By the end of the 90s, I felt we'd begun to achieve our goals. There were strong Asian characters in the soaps, reporting the news, and in entertainment. I thought things could only get better.
But talking to these young men, I'm seeing a real change. They feel that they're all now seen as potential terrorists, and it makes no sense to them. Because of this, they think just about everyone in government and the media is lying to them.
I used to love watching news. I used to always read paper at work. After that, I've never bothered with it. I'm just thought, there's no point, because end of the day, the more I read it, the more my head is going to get twisted up, and I don't want that. I just want to, like I said before, I just want to earn my money and bring it home, and that's it.
Every single day, without any sign of relent at all, for several years now, they're seeing themselves portrayed as this sort of dark, ugly other who shouldn't be trusted, and perhaps to a great extent isn't even welcome in the country that they call home. And that's a huge thing. That's a massive thing to try and deal with.
But their mistrust goes even deeper than accusations of distortion. Many believe the real story behind the war on terror is far more sinister than the mainstream media will even consider. Alternative theories about 9/11 have been circulating via the internet for several years, copied and passed around on DVDs.
This is an American citizen himself who made it, and it shows you in full detail the DVD of what happened and how it happened. When something falls, something big falls, and it's been attacked from the side of the building, it's going to fall on its side, but it won't fall straight down unless you want it to fall straight down. And in that DVD, fireman saying it went down, bang, bang, bang. That's like demolishing a proper building, and it's done itself. That DVD just proves that the Americans did it themselves. It was all planned out before.
I've read about these theories on the web, and they make some pretty outrageous claims. But one thing's for sure, they're extremely popular, and hundreds of thousands of people across the world believe in them. Clearly, they're influencing a generation of young people.
Okay, so the Muslim guys I've met say they feel singled out and they're distrustful post 7/7. What about other Asians? What's happened to their sense of identity? Today I'm in Leeds city centre for the Sikh festival of Vaisakhi, the 307th anniversary of the first time someone was initiated as a Sikh. It's a very important day of celebration in our religion. I've come here to find out if the concept of a shared Asian identity I've always held has any meaning for young Sikhs in the 21st century.
You find yourself defending yourself so much more. You find yourself defending yourself as Indian, you find yourself defending yourself as a Sikh or a Punjabi, and putting in the boundaries and differentiating yourself. And it's a sad tale.
From Muslims, basically.
From Muslim, from Asian, this huge banner of Asian, which is so complicated and is so... It's a really strange and difficult title, because Asian to me, if someone says Asian, I immediately think brown person.
Post 7/7, all of that stuff. Do you think it's affected relationships and identities between Sikhs and Muslims?
Yes, especially straight after 7/7, the T-shirts which you don't freak, I'm a Sikh.
Don't freak, I'm a Sikh.
Yeah.
All right. Just like don't panic, I'm Islamic.
Yeah. But the whole idea was don't freak, I'm a Sikh, was that, you know, every brown person after 9/11, after 7/7, you immediately became a threat. You immediately became somebody who was out to damage, you know, the world. And it was trying to like present yourself as good and just.
Okay.
You know, and set yourself apart, which is what the Muslim community did, because the Muslim community will always come out and say, you know, they're not doing it in the name of Islam.
Yeah.
Which is totally fair. And just as much as they distance themselves, we want to segregate. So in a sense, we're still worried. We're still concerned about how white people perceive us, and we know we're still a minority, and we know we're still within danger, which is why we do that.
By chance, I've met a young man who lives in Beeston, the area of Leeds I was turned away from. What was Beeston like just after the bombs?
It was, for a few months we didn't really go out.
You didn't go out?
No.
Why?
Just afraid, I think. And it was just didn't seem right, and Beeston was just all over the news every day. And I think a lot of the people just weren't happy with the way it was portrayed. I played football with him.
Who did you play football with?
I can't remember the names. Everyone had a nickname, so it was just, you know, like there's a park in Beeston, everyone gathers on that park in the summer, so you just like join in with them. I think I saw them a few weeks earlier while they'd done it, and it just felt weird. We were all like shocked that it was our area. They were about my age, I think, probably, so no, it wasn't right.
Naminda says he still plays football with his friends in the same park and will ask if they'll agree to meet me and have a kickabout. Perhaps they'll talk on camera. But I'm starting to wonder why I want to go to Beeston at all. Would I be behaving like all the other journalists who just want a sexy story? Here I am, right in the heart of the community that bred the suicide bombers, playing football on the actual pitch they set foot on. I'm starting to feel a bit creepy about it all. A friend of mine who I was very close to, who takes his politics really seriously and takes Islam really seriously. I spoke to him yesterday because I wanted to make some sense out of some stuff for this program, and he basically told me, and we've known each other 10 years, that everything that I was and everything that I believed in has now gone, that I have become one of them, that I'm a puppet on a string for the people who are out to get the Muslims, that there are only two sides now. You're either with the Muslims or you're against them. And by making this program, I'm against the Muslims. Why? He said because every program about Islam is going to be against the Muslims. Every program on the main channels is going to be against the Muslims. What he said was, you're not making this program. This ain't authored. This ain't your program. Channel 4 pulling your strings. You're a puppet. You are a puppet. So this is my challenge, to try and dig deeper into the community and understand if my perception of Generation 7/7 is right. When I started this film, I thought there was a growing divide between Asians in Britain along religious lines. But now I realise that's part of my problem. I was naive in thinking that as a Sikh, I'd still have insight into the British Muslim population. It was probably even more naive to think that as a member of the media, I'd still be welcomed with open arms by my Asian brothers. For the past few weeks, I've been trying to find someone to talk to me and having very little luck. Some people have told me off camera that they can see why the London bombers might have done it. But when I've asked to film them, I keep coming up against comments like, no way, bruv. I don't know what you could do with what I say, man. I could end up in Guantanamo Bay. Stuff like that. Luckily, someone's taken pity on me, and I've been invited for a meal with a good old-fashioned Yorkshire family. 6 hours in the car. I feel like I've gone insane. They're a Yorkshire family, like I said, but don't expect I've driven this long for roast beef and Yorkshire pud. I'm happy because I think I'm going to get a great Pakistani Kashmiri meal and some good food for the mind as well. Hello. Yeah, well, it turns out they watched the Channel 4 news piece about Riz and his post 9/11 blues.
Sounds like quite a humorous, jokey type, tongue-in-cheek type.
That's what I mean. I mean, it's satire, really. You know, it's quite dark humour, used to explain quite a serious subject, and now it's become a news story.
He portrayed a British man held captive at Guantanamo Bay and was then detained on his return to the UK after the film's premiere. Now Rizwan Ahmed is generating fresh controversy with the lyrics of a new song satirising the security climate after the September the 11th terror attacks.
What can I do? I got the post 9/11 blues on the telly, nothing but the post 9/11 news.
More negative than positive, sort of the response that you got from the listeners?
Oh no, it was 90% positive, which was really interesting. Some people texting and just saying, how can you use humour on such a serious subject? But the majority of people was just like, that's amazing, it's never been done before.
Well, it's good timing in a way because it's relevant to identity, isn't it?
Yeah. Hello, Uncle G. How are you?
No, not like this.
Oh, okay, I get a juppie. Have you suffered the post 9/11 blues?
When September the 11th first happened, I did feel really down about it, and yeah, it was really sad. The way that other people you felt like they were treating you differently, even if they weren't. You do become paranoid. But realistically, I'm not suffering any type of blues, to be honest. I don't feel like I'm being discriminated against on a day-to-day basis.
People expected it to affect you, and they kept going on, so how do you feel now it's after 9/11? And, have you been discriminated against? Do people shout things at you in the street? No more than they did before.
Question to ask.
Some of the young brothers I've been speaking to, and about all of this stuff, they've said, we know why those guys went out and did 7/7. We know it's wrong. We'd never do anything like that ourselves. But there is so much injustice raging throughout the world. It affects some people like that. Why do you think the guys from 7/7, why do you think they did it?
People expect Muslims to be able to explain this. Why should we? We're not murderers, right? We're not the kind of people who would go and do that. And 4 people out of 1.6 million Muslims have committed a criminal act. I don't feel responsible for them. I don't see why I should feel responsible. Okay, they're Muslim, but there are a whole load of other reasons why they might have gone and done that.
I know a lot of people that said they knew the people quite well, and they used to. I used to go swimming on Sundays or Saturdays with one of the guys in Armley Boss, and it's just it was a really good guy. But I mean, I wouldn't expect anything like that to be for him to do something like that.
But there's another thing about these 4 guys and about the 9/11 bombers. It's a question that you're not even allowed to ask. Actually, is did they really do it? Did they really do it? I mean, if you look at the Brazilian guy who was shot how many times in the head?
8. I thought it was 8
9 times. If there hadn't been a public inquiry, would we have found out what we found out about him?
The first 2 days after the news, it's almost like lies compared to...
That's right. Why hasn't there been a public inquiry on the 7/7 bombings here? It was a major national event. Shouldn't there have been an inquiry? It just makes you wonder what is really going on, and I think people just feel they don't know what to believe now.
Even September the 11th, they managed to find the passport of apparently one of the bombers in this mass. The Quran. Because somebody who's going to blow himself up would take a Quran with them, obviously, because it's like the manual terror in Arabic. They find these things. It's just like, how did you find a passport in this massive pile of rubble where they can't even find bodies or paper? They can't find anything that they can find a passport and a Quran.
Okay, so I'll admit I'm a little surprised. It's one thing to hear conspiracy theories from young working class men, people you might expect would feel alienated and be looking for alternative explanations. But the fact that this well-adjusted middle class family has serious doubts is a real shock. You know, I can't carry on my investigation into how the London bombings have affected Asians' identity without having a good look at what's been fueling their suspicions about the events of 7/7 itself.
It's just been announced that there'll definitely be no public inquiry into 7/7. They say the bombers were working alone and had no direct contact with Al-Qaeda.
So 2 reports, but also a flat refusal from the government to sanction a full independent and public inquiry, leaving many questions still unanswered for the families of victims and also for those living in the communities where Britain's first ever homegrown suicide bombers grew up.
Author Nafeez Ahmed's new book is called The London Bombings, an Independent Inquiry. He's based his research on official documents and information in the public record. He doesn't believe there's a huge conspiracy at work, but he understands what is fueling these ideas.
We simply do not have reasonable information, and on the contrary, what we find is that what the police have said, what the government has said about the attacks is riddled with inconsistencies and anomalies that the British public deserve an explanation for. Our problem is that in the absence of an independent inquiry, in the absence of the government being transparent with the British public, people are left to think the worst.
Pretty much all experts agree the bombers would not have been acting alone. Is there a central figure, a mastermind, still here?
This is what was being reported immediately afterwards, and it's where Dewsbury man Harun Rashid Aswat enters the story. At the time, it was publicly alleged by police he was the likely mastermind, the 5th man in the plot. Soon after this, though, allegations were made by several foreign security sources that Aswat had been an MI6 asset, a rogue agent who may have double-crossed them. Interestingly, a year on, the government's report no longer mentions him.
The report concludes there was no 5th bomber and no mastermind behind the deadly plan.
Now this is a very, very odd turnaround, and it's difficult to avoid the conclusion that the reason that the British police have turned around so fast on this issue is very simply that the public revelations that occurred around the same time that Harun Rashid Aswat was, at least at one time, connected to MI6.
Of course, without a public inquiry, this is all speculation, and MI6 deny Aswat ever worked for them. He isn't part of the 7/7 investigation, but is now in custody in the UK, where he's awaiting extradition to the US on unrelated terror charges.
Even if we accept everything that the government has said about 7/7, we have no reason to look at the British Muslim community and say that this is a phenomenon, that terrorism is a phenomenon that all British Muslims should be seen as in some way responsible for, in some way connected to. It's just there is simply no reason to do that.
There's no reason, but many of the young Muslim men I've met feel this kind of finger-pointing still happens on a regular basis. They tell me that they feel implicated just by the very fact that they are young Muslim men.
I mean, I travel to Leeds every day on the train. There's not even one white person there. I'll come and sit next to me, even though I have a JD Sport gym bag, yeah, and you can't fit nothing in there, but they still think you've got a backpack, you've got a beard. Or what's that? What's he pulling out? What's he pulling out? I'm not getting on that train. Fair enough, more room for me, why not?
Where do you think all these things that are happening in terms of 9/11, 7/7, where's it going to lead us here in Britain?
Right, it's just going to lead us to the lowest of the low. Right? There are already people out there thinking Asian plus beard equals terrorist. Right? That's their some equation that they have in their head. You know? I mean, if that's going to keep on going, dragging on and on and on, and it's just going to be like, what are we? They're just going to kick us around like, aren't they?
Like everyone else I've met so far, Fazan says it's the way he's identified as a potential threat by non-Muslims that really upsets him. We're constantly warned that we're in danger from Islamic militants all over the world. And I can see how the press only seems interested in stories that promote this idea. Take the story about weapons of mass destruction before the Iraq invasion. It was front page news that we were in imminent danger of an attack by a hostile Muslim nation. 5 years later, the truth has finally come out. But on what page does that story appear? On page 19 of The Guardian, which isn't exactly known as a right-wing paper, you've got the White House has acknowledged for the first time that a key moment in post-war Iraq, the declaration by George Bush that we have found the weapons of mass destruction. He actually said that. George Bush said that was based on intelligence known in Washington to be false. That's on page 19. Why isn't that headlined? Why isn't there a massive picture of George Bush? And the following headline, the declaration by George Bush that we have found the weapons of mass destruction, in quotation marks, was based on intelligence known in Washington to be false. If I was 19, paranoid, a believer in conspiracy theories, or even just someone who thought the media was distorting, pick up your daily newspaper. I've seen it now myself.
This is a minor example, but I'm hearing it from everyone I talk to, and I can see it happening in subtle and more blatant ways all around.
It's the backlash police and community leaders feared. Reprisal attacks on mosques and temples.
On August the 2nd, 2005, the police said that in the 4 weeks after 7/7, reports of racist attacks in Yorkshire had doubled. In fact, they'd increased all over the country. The following day, the Shadow Defence Secretary, Gerald Howarth, said in an interview that if some Muslims don't like our way of life, there is a simple remedy. Go to another country. Get out.
You're waiting for somebody to counteract an Islamophobic comment, and it doesn't come. And you're thinking, okay, this is acceptable. When did this happen? And why isn't somebody saying something? Why isn't somebody doing anything?
I think Islamophobia is a type of racism, and that's how Muslims experience racism. You know, it's not so much to do with skin colour in our case, it's more to do with the ability to practice our beliefs in public.
The life, the years that you spend in this country, it's upsetting. If you put an Englishman in our shoes and you say that to him, he ain't going to like it. Neither do we. Same people, same heart, born and bred here, very British.
This all reminds me of the bigotry I fought against as a young man. I thought we were winning the battle and racism against Asians was on its way out. But we've now got this new form of hatred called Islamophobia, a whole religion being blamed for the actions of a few.
You know, I've seen something worryingly like this before in my own life, when Sikhs were made the scapegoats for the actions of a few radicals in India in 1984. There'd been a wave of terrorist attacks by Sikh extremists, people who didn't in any way represent the views of the majority peaceful population.
While I was out there, Indira Gandhi was assassinated by her bodyguards, and me and my family, a British Asian family, found ourselves in my uncle's house in Delhi, locked into a bathroom with people trying to burn down the house around us and trying to kill us. And while this young 13-year-old version of myself sat there going, what is going on? Not really understanding what was going on, we had knocking on the back door, and I actually remember hearing my uncle and my dad and everyone debate whether they should open the door because it was the next door neighbour, and they started suddenly saying, it's the next door neighbour, maybe he wants to kill us. They've known each other for 50 years, and suddenly in the space of one morning they're going, does he want to kill us? In the end we went down. He led us, he said, I'm going to get you to safety. He took us into a room, and in this room, every Sikh in the neighbourhood was in there. Women crying, kids freaking out, and I remember being squashed in like a sardine, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I suddenly went, Anne Frank was a Jew who ran away from people who wanted to kill her because of her race and religion, and she had to hide, and I'm doing the same thing right now. And at that point I started crying because I suddenly realized what was going on.
In 1984 in India, it was Sikhs who were targeted because of the activities of some extremists. Am I seeing similarities with what's happening today with Muslims in Britain?
I can see why people would find commonalities in the build-up to other genocides, if you like, and ethnic cleansing. I can see the sort of ripples, if you like, going on at the moment. But to think that it would go to the same extent is actually quite frightening, isn't it?
Maybe that's why I wasn't able to get into Beeston in the first place. Are people scared they're going to be singled out and misrepresented? But now I've finally had a breakthrough. I've got a call from the young Sikh brother I met earlier who lives in Beeston. He's invited me to come and play football with him and his friends.
Today's actually a bit of a special day because after all the trials and tribulations, we're actually going to Beeston. We're in Beeston, the place that's locked everyone else out, and we're actually playing football with Naminda, one of the guys I met on Vasaki in Leeds Town Centre, and we're playing it in the park in Beeston, where the Bombers used to hang out and play football. Right, let's go. I'm worried about what's going to happen at the park today. I think this could turn into the most patronising thing ever. The worst thing, the worst idea I've ever gone through, and that's something I hate. I would hate to go in there and have those brothers turn around and say, you try to come in this way, and, you know, basically get disrespect by them. But come on, let's go. I'm not going in there. I'm not patronising. I do not feel like I want to patronise anyone, so let's go and see what happens.
Frankly, I'm pretty nervous about how they'll take to me going in with a camera after their hostile reception of the media since 7/7.
I want to have a bit of a knock around, chill out, meet some people. But if they're so anti the media, if they had radars, which meant when we first went there, they walked out en masse, won't they see the camera? And, you know, it could go really wrong. Yes, and Aminda's taken us in. He knows all those brothers. And now there's some conversation going on, and just looking at it, I'm not getting the feeling it's cool conversation. I think they're really worried. I don't know, I'm being paranoid now.
Getting as bad as everybody else.
It's the media. My mum was mucky waking me up, but I'm really tired. This is like basically the worst day for me to go and try and prove my footballing prowess. I've got a mic with me, but we're not. So do you think I should? Anyone want to talk? You've seen what we're doing. You know, it's just a chilled out.
Together, that'd be good.
It's up to you. She ain't playing. No, do you want to? I'm just saying. Do you want to talk? Want to do it?
Everyone together.
Okay.
Okay, I was hoping they'd speak to me, but it looks like everyone just wants to play football. Maybe when they see how bad I am, they'll change their minds. They finally agreed to talk after the match, but then suddenly some other kids who've gathered on the adjoining pitch start having a go at me and my camera crew, pulling their hoodies up, saying things like, "Film me, I'm a suicide bomber. Yeah, I'm Osama bin Laden, film me," and being generally aggressive. I'm on their patch and they don't like it, so reluctantly it's time to leave.
No, I mean, this is a bit more going on there, but it's kids. So I really wanted to argue with those kids, you know, but they're kids. I wanted to say, why are you going film my hoodie and then going journalists? Because those journalists who come in from the tabloids are going to ignore you, ignore all the brothers playing football, and go straight to those little kids, and those kids are just going to say, it's like swearing. They'll say all those words, you know, terror, Osama, suicide, this, that. To them it's like swearing. Ah, well.
I began my journey wanting to know how the younger generation's sense of identity had been affected by the London bombings. I blundered into Beeston in Leeds, naively expecting I'd be accepted as an Asian brother. What I found when I finally got there was I was treated like any other journalist in search of a juicy story about suicide bombers.
Do you ever get the feeling you've been used as a target practice?
And promptly told to F off. It's a barrier I never really got past. I felt like an outsider in a way I never have before amongst Asians, simply because I'm from the media.
And if I'm honest, I can see their point. There are lots of sides to every story, including 7/7. But I'm being told again and again that the only side that's ever seen is the side that shows Muslims as the enemy. I'm trying to find out why some young people don't call themselves British Asian anymore. I'm worried I've uncovered something very sinister. No one really knows what led those 4 young men to bomb London on 7/7. But the lasting effect of their actions has been to further alienate their own communities. Now all Muslims feel implicated. And I think there's a real danger it's driving a wedge between communities who once stood shoulder to shoulder against racism. In my worst nightmares, I see hatred growing unless we stop singling out one race or religion as bad. It always starts with apparently small-scale injustices, and as we've seen before in history, if left unchecked, these can sometimes go into large-scale persecution. What happened to the Jews, where you actually had the press, the government, everyone, the middle classes, sort of working in tandem with a slow drip, drip, drip of negativity until it ended in the Holocaust? I've actually said that could be happening right now. There are people who actually think that's happening right now to Muslims. You know, it's only sometimes I remember it happened to Sikhs, and I was in the center of it, and I actually was my own 13-year-old British Asian Anne Frank. And sitting here right now, I'm actually thinking either history repeats itself constantly, and I've got a warning to tell all my brothers and sisters in Britain, or I'm mashed in the brain because of my experience when I was 13, and I'm just paranoid.
There's a track called the Post 9/11 Blues, yeah? And the chorus goes, if you want to sing along.